Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tory's episode to Get Grilled.
Figuratively, that would be very bad. Yes, above the
Yes,
table.
we don't want to actually grill her.
Yeah. Tory might want to grill other Kindred, but that's beyond the point.
Several.
Anyway, interview with Kindred, Tory. So, little recap of what happened. Because, yeah, I've been doing that with everybody else. Might as well go through that with you. Feel free to jump in at any time and let me know anything that, specifically stood out to you. Or what...
To me or them?
All of you. But specifically you, Faye, as far as, what Tory was thinking. So, night started off like a normal night. Everybody and their mother was calling you, sending you messages, sending you missives, saying, hey, we want to meet with you. You got one from the Harpy, Giovanni, and Cyril.
Yeah, when the one with Cyril came along, it was basically a thank God I don't have to go see the other ones.
Yeah, I figured that much. So I know we kind of agreed upon it as a whole, as far as who was going with who. But what was the thought process behind that for everybody that was involved?
Why she chose those specific people for things?
Yeah, and why Beth and Steven were like, yeah, I'll go to do this.
So she didn't know much about the Harpy, at all. But Tory does mostly know what a Harpy does and all of that. So Steven is really good at not giving anything away. And Beth flirts. Steven has relatively, so far, been very, very composed with everything. So she kind of figured that if she needs someone to not say anything and to not cause any aggression, that he would be the one to pick for that.
I mean, that's fair.
There was always, obviously, the chance that he had one of his delusions and, stab someone. But it's gamble. With Beth is very determined, and while she does flirt, no offense, Cocia, but Beth flirts. She's very strong-willed and won't be easily taken advantage of with Kindred mind games. That was the reasoning Tory picked who she did.
And then there was no mind games, and things went great.
I think we are remembering two very different games.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth did what she had to, and everything worked out. That's her story. She's sticking to it.
That entire night was nothing but mind games.
Okay. So, and then the next order of business, the fact that you couldn't get a hold of Shiloh, was that worrying at all?
Concerning. Tory knows, a little bit about Shiloh. She obviously knows that Shiloh is the potential flight risk. I don't think she thought that Shiloh bolted on them, especially because Samal never said anything. But definitely asking Samal was kind of hey, Shiloh's part of my new pack now, can you make sure she doesn't die? But also, I need to know if she leaves. Tory doesn't immensely trust anyone yet. Trusting, but not yet.
Yeah. I get what you mean. I don't know if anybody else does, but I get it. So,
Probably more so now that we have gone through these incidents and everyone is still together and relatively whole.
I mean, everybody's whole. Nobody really got hurt, so everybody's fine.
Maybe not mentally.
Anyway, so
real fast though, I do think some of the building trust did break with Shiloh, who would have been the one she trusted the most after the Gregor thing. Not that Shiloh had a way to know, but it was still difficult.
Understandable.
Yeah. So, Beth takes Steven off to do their things. Tory hops into the car that she absolutely abhors, which I think is funny that you keep taking that vehicle.
That is the only vehicle offered to her.
This is true.
Both times, that has been the only one offered.
Beth only has 3 cars. She always drives Dolly. The truck is still being repaired. That only leaves Flying Banana.
And I think
not for long.
Yeah, I think it's funny that my joke for the name of the car is like sticking. But anyway, you show up to Enos Medical Company, which I believe Steven had some information that he never gave about.
Well, we weren't supposed to look in the cereal anymore, so...
Oh, do not
True.
use that as your excuse. Steven has not shared, like, anything.
Don't know what you're talking about.
The fact that she was met by a mortal, did that like strike her as odd at all, or was that just like that's a normal whatever?
Yes and no. She didn't expect to be greeted by a kindred or anything necessarily. She's not sure if he's a ghoul. A little surprised that Cyril is using so many mortals in these areas that he's working in. But it makes sense because the technological advances and everything like that, older kindred wouldn't have those anymore. Kind of her same views on mortals. She's like, oh, okay, he's there. Cool, I guess. She doesn't hold mortals in too high of regard. Doesn't treat them badly, necessarily, but, like, definitely below.
You mean you see mortals as second-class citizens?
Kind of.
How dare you?
Again, she won't go out of her way to treat them badly. They're just kind of there. They make the world go round, can't live without them, but also sees herself as not part of them anymore.
You mean her time in the Sabbat actually changed her?
Yes.
No way. Anyway, you are taken downstairs, put through a mock orientation, and then thrown into basically a prison.
Yeah, that was very surprising. Out of game, I knew something like that was going to happen, or I had assumed something like that was going to happen. But Tory was very taken aback by it.
It actually kind of surprised me that you said out of game you thought something like that would have happened.
I just thought they were going to be like Thin Bloods or something like that. I'm not gonna lie.
Funny you say that. There are multiple Thin Blood whites in there.
Now that doesn't surprise me. Had we stayed on the white conversation longer, I think Tory would have suggested starting with the Thin Blood white because their beast wouldn't have been theoretically as strong.
Yeah, and so obviously you still have the contact information, you still have the in for that, so that could be theoretically discussed later on down the road.
Does she? Because it was never discussed, like, really in-game that she was welcome back, so I wasn't sure if that was, like, an out-of-context, or out-of-recorded gameplay thing or whatnot. At least I don't recall she was invited back.
He didn't necessarily invite you back, however, he did say if you ever need anything, or if you need food, let him know.
Mm.
So it was kind of a implied, if you want to talk to me, you can. I'm allowing you to.
Okay. But no, I straight up thought they were just going to be like normal Thin Bloods. I didn't know he was a Diablerist necessarily, but there have been implied things that, like, him intimidating the Thin Bloods and him going after, like, Thin Bloods for knowledge and things like that. I just kind of thought that he might have a collection going.
So, we all know what the Smeetsy Bane is. And why they're called dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Does this make a little bit more sense as to exactly what his horde is?
Yeah. It's whites, apparently.
Well, it's not necessarily just the whites, but it's the understanding and the knowledge base.
That's
like
fair.
He has a physical horde, but he also has a mental horde as well.
That's fair. There's a lot of interesting knowledge that he would have acquired.
Yeah, and I feel like it could be useful if given the right person come along and decide to cultivate it. He's not necessarily the smartest of the bunch. He's smart, but he's not necessarily the smartest.
I do think that is something that would actually interest Tory somewhat. She's very kind of in, I don't want to say in agreement because there is no agreement with the beast, but like she's actively working towards that a little bit, or trying to. But you and I have talked about that during her time in this, about her humanity level would have been extraordinarily low at one point. Like, borderline white level. So, knowing she couldn't come back from that is part of the reason she changed. And, like, started gaining her humanity back a little bit. So I think once it sinks in and there's not, like, and there's a moment to breathe, that it might sink in and interest her.
And like, I actually did legitimate, like, World of Darkness research on it. As far as, like, if there was a mechanic to be able to come back, and I haven't found one yet. If somebody has one, by all means, send it my way, and I'll read it over. If it's a homebrew thing. If it's not a homebrew thing, if it's an actual, like, World of Darkness canon thing, by all means, send it my way. I'll read it. I'll figure it out. I won't understand it immediately, but I'll figure it out. And then maybe they'll make that discovery. If not, I might eventually come up with an idea of how to, like, make it happen. Just out of character, out of game, out of everything. For everybody.
Above the table.
Yes, above the table. For everybody to know. Because I do think that that would be a neat thing to be able to do. It would be exceedingly difficult, I tell you that much.
Oh, of course. But it would be interesting.
Yes. And I don't think that you would ever get the full person back.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm like trying to figure out on my end. Like, legitimately. So, from white prison to got to meet the sire.
That surprised me and definitely took Tory back. Tory has extremely mixed feelings on sires, so she actually does not understand why he seems to care about the sire.
Right, which we have talked extensively about it. And the fact that he still has the sire that has obviously turned into a white. And probably shows no signs of ever coming back.
Right.
Given the Smeetsy, old Smeetsy. Very, very old Smeetsy, really. So lots of time to do this, lots of time to really be a full-on Smeetsy. In a time when it was okay to kind of step over those bounds. Because you didn't have social media and videography and all this other fun stuff.
Yeah, he probably would have actually had like a parcel of land in which he dominated over people.
Yes.
And they knew he was a monster.
Yes. And actually, as a matter of fact, you might find out exactly where that was at some point.
Interesting.
AKA when we do the serial deep dive. It's going to be great. Trust me. Anyway. You, that would be cool. You go from there, you go down an elevator, you have a pretty long talk about the whole Diablerie thing. And the fact that both of you enjoy the taste of Kindred Vitae.
I said it off recording, but I'll say it again on recording. That was a very interesting and fun dance to have, conversation-wise. To, like, obviously neither wanted to fully admit it at first until there was a, oh, hey, you might actually do that.
Right, because he had his suspicions because of Jacoby. And you had your suspicions because of other unspoken things. The whole intimidation and keeping Thinbloods around, this, that, and next. And they're probably the easiest to pull from.
Oh, yes.
Because they won't say anything.
No. What? Who would believe them? Why would they say that? Like, there's a lot of things that they would have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you're not necessarily wrong that he did do that at times. However, now you know where he gets the majority of his.
And apparently it's spicy.
Yeah, I came up with that on spot. I just thought it made sense.
No, it's funny. I like it.
But after the whole Diablerie talk, you found another cell. Very large cell. With the dude in the middle of it. Lights were out. There were like spotlights on him. It's great.
That was something.
Yeah. Did it bother you as a player how that happened? Just out of curiosity. Not necessarily like actually, not like actually like you had an issue with it bother, but like were you like, oh shit, I might die right now?
Yes. Absolutely. I trust you enough to not just straight off like say, hey, Tory, you just can't play her anymore, or anything like that. I didn't think you would immediately kill her or something. I thought there was a possibility that I could have to make some rolls to not be taken over. Obviously within given a fighting chance to succeed, but also a chance of failure. I was afraid for that.
Yeah. And I actually did quite a bit of background and like discipline checking and all this other fun stuff from previous editions to find stuff that would make sense and still fit and be in the right disciplines and all this fun stuff. Good news. This immediate bloodline does not have any of those that will do that. They do, however, have things that will make actual plagues that, like, Kindred can get, and it hurts them with aggravated damage.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it just kills mortals. Stuff like that. So, and so, like, it does have, like, a specific, like, you have to touch somebody. So that's why I was like, Cyril would know not to go near him at all.
Right. Or if I remember right, Tory rolled decently on knowing the Samiti bloodline.
Yes.
So while she might not know the specifics, she would probably be like, probably shouldn't get too close.
Yeah. And the only reason, again, above the table, why I picked that one rather than, like, pretty much any of the other ones was mostly due to the fact of our Call Cthulhu. I did want to tie in. I didn't necessarily initially think of it to be, like, the same universe. But then I was like, why not make it the same universe? It just kind of makes sense.
Yep. Having them pulled together like that is really, really interesting, and says there's a lot of really cool things I'm looking forward to the potential of seeing. Both back and forth in both games.
Right.
And oh my god, having Circe's journal dropped in. I thought the Samiti destroyed that.
No, he kept it with him.
Huh.
But yeah, no, I may or may not have Easter eggs here and there for everybody. So look for those in our games coming up.
Yeah, I'm sure some might pop up in my games too.
By all means, do that. And if you have one that you specifically want to add in as a spoiler Easter egg, let me know, and I'll make sure I'll work it in sometime.
We'll talk.
Anyway, so she got talked to by the Methuselah.
Ooh, that was something. She was scared.
If she could poop her pants, she would have.
Yes. I imagine she was very close to sweating blood from sheer nerves.
That would be bad.
Yes.
But it's fine. I mean, we didn't, yeah, it's fine. Anyway, so from there, you were apparently, like, in that trance-like state for a couple hours.
Yeah, that was very surprising. I did not think it was going to be that long.
Yeah, so in my head, it's because it takes a minute to, like, establish that connection, especially from that distance, and then transmission and receipt probably takes a minute.
Fair enough.
And he wouldn't have let go until he was done. So it was him voluntarily giving you up. So it was like, okay, you can have it.
Yeah. Why did he let her go, given the fact that she said no?
Because he couldn't have fun anymore. And if he knew that he wasn't going to get anywhere, there was no point in keeping you. Because at that point, it's even more obvious that, like, he's not asleep.
Well, I think he kind of blew that cover real fast there.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's old, so he knew that doing that would kind of blow the cover, but he was like, this way at least they won't hurt me immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to really play her being scared. I kind of feel like she just, like, shuts down emotionally and, like, not mentally, but, like, just pulls back and just shuts down, which is why there wasn't a big reaction.
I mean, that's fair.
Given everything that she has witnessed and everything, it felt like a proper traumatic response. Like trauma response.
Traumatic stress response, yeah. She might have a disorder regarding that. Who knows?
Oh, absolutely she does. But the shutting down and just going with the flow in order to get herself out in the best way and fastest way possible felt appropriate.
Did she have any reservations staying there?
Abso-fucking-lutely. But she also was not going to risk not being able to find somewhere to stay during the dawn. But given Cyril's talking of like treating her as a guest, that was the only reason she stayed.
Because she does have a little bit of it's been established as she knows a little bit of the Smitsi, like, bloodline and how they traditionally act.
Yeah, she kind of blurted that out to Carissa, so she probably knows a decent amount about them versus other Kindred, which she also still knows a good chunk about.
Yeah, so she understands that once a Smitsi considers you their guest, they won't harm you. Unless if you do something specifically that causes them, yeah.
Which is why she offered Vitae in exchange.
Right. So once you got out of the facility and, like, your phone blew up, not literally, obviously, but, like, just started going off, what was the initial, like, thoughts running through her head, do you think?
So before reading anything, it was, God damn, I can't leave them alone for one night, can I? That was the first initial, like, thought. It was probably still the second thought after reading some of it.
At least you didn't get specifics.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Speaking of specifics, Beth's whole new deal.
Overall, Tory doesn't particularly care. The only reason that the situation was making her angry was because currently the Giovanni have ties to the Camarilla and have threatened them. And people she is protecting. And now Beth is working for the people who threatened them. Like, yes, we're working with Cyril, so I get that. Tori's not thrilled with that prospect either. But the Giovanni are more of an overt threat, she thinks, than Cyril is. Because we had the one confrontation with Cyril in which we actually fought him. And then every other step has been, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone.
Right. Whereas the Giovanni were like, I'm here, I'm going to lay my stuff out on the table, and we're going to measure it, and then you do the same.
Right.
Yeah. They're much more upfront of, we're going to cause issues with you if you don't do what we say.
Yes. Amp is a little shit, but she didn't want to give him up.
Right. Because for all his faults, he's, I wouldn't necessarily say good, but better than most.
He's young. He's better than a lot of Kindred are. He, again, as much of a little shit he was, he didn't treat them badly.
Right.
And that goes a lot for her. And he did not want to go back, so she wasn't going to make him go back.
So you still have him, which is great. But the prospect of Beth laundering money for Giovanni, I'm sure that's probably not the best thing in the world.
She's not thrilled. Definitely not thrilled. There's worse connections. The amount of anger was because of everything building up, not just at Beth.
Right.
Beth was just the one that was trying to not necessarily hide and lie about it, but like kind of sweep it under the rug.
In my defense,
and not give full and complete answers. Absolutely. But like along with all of the other information that she was given and stuff that we now have to deal with, Beth treating it like that really irked her.
Right. Now, the thing that I want to make completely clear, Nate and his gentleman's club, wasn't just that. It was human trafficking as well. By him, not even by the Giovanni.
I'm
Nate
not surprised by that at all.
Yeah, Nate was a 100% piece of crap. He was trying to do that with Beth. He just messed up, and he was like, well, can't do it with her now.
I'm not surprised at all. I actually had that thought earlier today. I was like, oh, I should send this to Dengle, and then you just said it, so I guess I didn't need to.
Yeah, he just messed up, and he was like, well, I can't do it with her now, so I guess I gotta, like, make sure she doesn't die immediately. I guess. I don't know. I don't even know what to do with her.
Pawn her up on someone else, apparently.
So that being said, whatever Beth does with the entire operation, it's better than what Nate was doing. So it's a win. And everybody's actually getting paid properly. So, yeah. And then we move to Steven's whole thing. Steven actually did a pretty good job, all things considered.
Yes.
The hunters weren't after him, which is great.
He didn't bring attention to them, which is even better.
Correct. He just said, oh, gotta go.
Yes. Harpy the dumpster, bye!
That's assuming that drone that flew up to him wasn't recording.
That's fine, you didn't tell Tory about that, so she doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was recording, but meh.
you still didn't theoretically lead them to us, give them any information about yourself. You took it out immediately. So, like, even if they have a face, it's not going to be extremely difficult for them to get you.
Right, and you have a Cyril, so you can change your face. Technically speaking, if need be.
Assuming Steven wants to deal with them.
Yes, because Steven does not like Cyril.
No, however, going forward, I feel like Steven might... Like, Cyril's not completely terrible. Not great.
Not the worst one.
Yeah. We all know who the worst one is.
Lesser of two evils type thing.
Yeah. So, anyway, going back to Steven. The fact that he actually helped the Harpy. What's Tory's thoughts on that?
Not thrilled. Not thrilled. Definitely would have preferred either a staking and left in the burning building, or like shoved at the hunters and be used as distraction to get away, like lots of other things. Cause it's not like they were staying in Tory's domain. Anything that would have happened would have fallen back on Carissa.
Right. Which that actually kind of like half surprises me. Just for the simple fact of like, I feel like Tory, the one thing she hates more than like actual Cam or Sabat are hunters that kill Kindred.
Yeah. No, she's very much not thrilled that they're there. But they're there because of the Harpy. So if they took the Harpy or killed the Harpy, probably would have left to go chase on greater problems.
A Carissa, who knows? Hopefully.
Right. Or something like that, or gone back to whatever city they were originally from, because they were not from here.
Right. Not saying that there's none in Atlanta.
Oh, I'm sure there are, but the ones that made the big deal were after the Harpy. If they got the Harpy, probably would have moved on to other big targets.
Right. That being said, if the Harpy's going back to Savannah, which presumably they are, that'll still
Presumably,
get them out.
but we don't know.
Right.
And
That'll be to
that
be
way would
determined.
have, right? But that way would have given us one less Camarilla in the world.
Right, and that's always a good thing.
Yes,
I believe everybody can agree with that one.
and not just any Camarilla, a proficient Camarilla.
Yes. That being said, like I said before, I'm kind of surprised that Steven went that route and was like, I'm going to try to save him.
Yeah, me too.
Might
Steven
turn out
was
to
in a
be-
good mood.
Like I said,
A
might be
good mood? You came out of a trip to a burning building. How was that a good mood?
He came out of a trip. But speaking of Camarilla, we have a bigger problem in the city now.
Yeah,
And
we
it's-
do.
And it's because of something that Shiloh didn't do, actually, apparently.
How much of that situation was explained to Tory? I'm blanking on the entire thing. So Shiloh said that she did not kill Dennis, right? And that Gregor killed Dennis.
Yeah, she would have been pretty clear about what happened.
Shiloh's info dump is really what shook Tory. She's not happy that Shiloh decided to not kill Dennis. She expected that, but she is not happy. That was part of the reason she asked Samal to go. Obviously, Samal couldn't actually go in the building with her, but Tory didn't know that. Or, you know, that whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, she's not happy about that.
Is there anything that Tori's happy about?
how her meeting with Cyril went.
The fact that everybody's still alive.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's that. Dante's not gone. Amp isn't gone. So that's good.
The mole has been taken care of. That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Steven didn't spill the beans on everybody.
Also very good. Like, there is good things that happened. There's just a lot more bad things. And this is why I said she expected Shiloh to not kill Dennis. 100% hands down. Expected her not to kill him. However, the consequences of that were way worse than any of us thought.
So before all this, I was speaking with Faye, right? And I was like, so if Shiloh kills Dennis, like actually kills him, by her hand, Gregor is going to just say, we don't know who killed him. Who knows? Carissa would have just went about her day, been fine. If Shiloh just walked away and let somebody else do it, Gregor would be like, it was her. Because, I know it sounds weird, we have established that he's ex-Sabat, he's a little shit. His past, the 3 strikes against him, and he wouldn't respect Shiloh for not taking care of her own dirty work. So therefore, would have been grounds for eradication in his eyes. That was the thought process behind it.
Typical Tremere fuckery.
There's the deeper part of that.
Gonna interject real fast right here. The path that him and Tory would have followed at one point is very, very interesting. It's kind of a big one in the Sabat, but it's also different to a lot of Sabat viewpoints, as in you push everyone to get stronger. And if you can't do it, then there are consequences for that. You're not killed necessarily, but there are consequences for not meeting expectations.
Yes, but at this point, he gives no fucks. Straight up being honest.
That's understandable. It doesn't inform his viewpoint whatsoever at all anymore.
Yeah, no, it's either you do it, or we're going to get rid of you because you're not useful anymore.
Then why didn't he just kill Shiloh straight off there?
Because he still wants to have fun. And he specifically said, I will let you walk out of here. I won't.
So he still keeps his word.
He still keeps his word. Didn't lie to anybody. Didn't lie to Shiloh. I won't hurt you. But I'll make somebody else do it. I know it's a weird, double standard. But let's be honest here. Knowing what you know about him right now.
Oh, fucking hands down.
It fits.
Oh, yeah.
Diving deeper into the Shiloh situation. The package that you were given.
Ooh. Ooh. I'm not sure what to say about that. She has extremely mixed feelings about her sire. She envies him, she despises him, she used to want to emulate him. So there's a lot of very heavy and mixed feelings there.
Right. And the fact that Shiloh got that from Gregor, the Tremere that she used to run with.
Ooh. Ooh. She hated him in the Sabbat, and she hates him now.
If she gets the chance, will she rip his head off? Not even eat him, just rip his damn head off.
I think she would do a lot worse than that.
Okay.
That could be an interesting... Let's make him a white. You have a place to keep him, Cyril.
Okay.
One of the few and far between times she would go to excess violence. And actually, like, torture.
That's fair.
Payback.
Yeah. So the fact that Carissa has declared praxis and called an Elysium to like let everybody know that this is what's happening, I'm sure rubs Tory every way that isn't the right one.
Yep.
Is Tory going to go willingly to the Elysium?
I think she will go. She will go to make a point to them that she is going to stand by Shiloh. And will do everything in her power to make sure that whoever plans on going to Shiloh, and probably Samal, will be met with anything Tory can bring down on them.
Now, to that point, for everybody else, are you going to go?
Yep, nope. Beth is gonna be right there with Tory. We can't let anything happen to our little Shiloh.
Steven's going to go in too, just to know who we really need to look out for.
And then is Shiloh going to show up?
Shy really doesn't want to go, but she feels like she owes it to the rest of the coterie to go if they're going to go.
That's fair. You might also have Samal go with you. Who knows?
If he lives whatever vendetta he's going to go do, sure, yeah.
Oh no, he's not going for violence this time.
Well, hopefully Tory pleading with him would help with that a little bit.
I love
Yeah.
that you have to say this time.
Yeah. No, this is more of a don't mess with me, you'll regret it. Warning, if anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah. It's great. But yeah, no. So Brexis, Elysium, that entire thing. And the whole talk with Samal.
Real fast back to the Elysium thing. I do think Tory will have some fun trying to push Carissa to see if she will break her own Elysium. So we'll see what happens there. Because Carissa has not seen Tory be anything other than semi-deferential to people above her.
Right. Which, this will be fun. Because, I mean, she's not quite Ventrue. But she still has the air of, I'm better than you.
Right. And Tori's not gonna... She's not gonna, allow that.
Yeah. So, anyway, so your conversation with Small, while it was brief, it was to a very specific point. And this is the first time that any of you have actually seen Small get angry. It wouldn't be the first time that Tory saw Small get angry, but it's the first time that Faye saw Small get angry.
Mm-hmm.
How did all of you handle that? Because it's not just a Faye question at this point.
I was expecting to see that at some point.
But the
That's
fact
what-
that, like...
Well, Sombra.
Right, but the fact that, like, the switch got flipped, he smashed the table, and then he, like, immediately went back to cool, calm, and collected.
I'm not necessarily surprised by that, given that I assume as a player that his reasoning for reacting like that is probably not too far off of Tory's.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I will say. Samal, I think we've kind of hit on it a couple times, but he's very, very religious. It's not Christian. It's not even Jewish. He's blanking. And what's the term?
Muslim?
That one. I was trying to say something else, and I was like, that's fucking wrong. Don't say that. So yes, he's Muslim. So
I felt that was pretty clear.
right. And what little I do know, like, that's one of their things, is like, control yourself. I mean, that's majority of religions, let's be honest here, but like, that's like a huge thing for them, is like, control your shit, like, keep your shit together. And he tries to live by that 100%.
Beast is probably a little bit problematic for that.
Yeah. And he was relatively low humanity at one point. He's been working back, but it's a slow process.
Yes.
He's probably sitting right about where Tory is.
Yeah,
He's,
not surprised.
yeah. And I know we talked a little bit after game about like what he does and his hunting style and all that fun stuff. He's a vigilante, if you're curious.
I like it.
He specifically goes after like criminals.
We discussed that during the game, not after the game.
Oh, that's fair.
He told Tory that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, he's got prey exclusion innocence. I figured it fit the character. So like, Small's got a whole lot of depth behind him as well. I've got like 4 people that actually have like legitimate depth, and then it's just like person because I need somebody. I have things, but not a whole lot of things. So yeah, that's another one that we'll be doing a deep dive at some point. I just have to do a whole lot more research on some stuff. So yeah,
For
it'll
sure.
be fun. But yeah, no, that pretty much ended the night for Tory.
Did you have any questions about how Tory responded to Small's, like, that whole talk?
Yeah, I mean,
I
how
mean,
did she? How
What were you
did
saying?
she actually respond to that? And pretty much the entire conversation, because it was not long, but it had a lot of like different parts to it.
She was very shell-shocked during the entire thing, because that is when she read the journal, was on her way to see him. So she was confronted by things that had been done to her in the past that harmed her. Which is why she was a little bit more, I don't want to say needy or clingy because that's not the right words, but he is the closest thing she had to an actual sire, to someone who actually took care of her. So hearing him basically be like, yeah, gonna go get myself offed because I don't care anymore, really hit her hard. Especially coming off of everything that had just happened.
Does it make you feel better to know that I just told you that it's more of a don't fuck with me, I will kill you talk rather than like we're gonna fight now talk?
I as a player really, really like Samal. But I'm thinking about in Tory's mindset, like that conversation they had. She still doesn't understand why people like their sires, because he isn't her sire. He's just the figure that stepped into a role similar to that. Which is also what she has been doing for multiple people. So that's interesting to see that.
Right. Whereas Samal wasn't necessarily the pack leader, was a leader in the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, like wasn't the bishop, right?
No, that was...
Or the cardinal or whatever.
That would have been Gregor.
Yeah.
The pack priest.
That one.
I think you said someone would have been like the hunting leader. Like a very similar role, but without the quasi-religious background to it that the Sabbat have.
Yeah.
So she still would look up to him in a position similar to that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Tory would have been part of the quote-unquote hunting crew.
Yes.
Let's be honest here. Tory's...
Given Gangrel and the abilities that she had, and... Yeah.
Yeah. And physically, she's strong. She's fast. It's just a thing. So, yeah. Between all of us above table, it's not going to go, like, have a big fight. He's going to lay shit on the line saying, stop. Don't mess with me. It will be bad for you, I promise you. Because while he maintains the I stay here alone, I don't deal with people, we've already known that to not necessarily be fully true.
Right. He knows at least one Tremere and probably several other people as well.
Right. And then the Caitiff, kind of, however it's pronounced.
Caitiff.
That Tory knows.
No one actually knew he was Caitiff, by the way. He dropped that bomb.
Right. But that's fine.
Yeah, Winnie is Caitiff.
Yep. And then you said something about replacing Carissa at some point, and he was like, I might be able to get old people, right?
Yeah, so there was the heavy implication that he was still in contact with lots of people.
Right. And it might not necessarily be like fast contact, but contact.
Right. Lines of communication of some sort.
Yeah. So obviously he still talks to people. He might not necessarily see them every day, he might not like hunt with them, might not spend a whole lot of time with them, but he knows of them. So fun times. Anyway, moving on from Samal. Does anybody have questions for Faye?
You know I do.
Bring 'em on.
Okay.
Oh, you have a list?
I do have a list. I've been keeping running lists for every single person as these individual games have gone on, and I've been deleting the questions as they get answered. So, yeah. So, first off, and this was the first one on my list, what is up with Tory and Toreadors? Because you had made a comment about that forever ago.
Yeah, Tory is afraid of Toreadors. Does not like them. Would much rather never be around one again. How much do you know about how certain clans act in the Sabbat? Like, you as a person.
Not a whole lot. I'm not super duper read up on the Sabbat.
Okay, because of Tory, I did a lot of reading on the Sabbat clans and all that stuff. Ooh, Toreadors. They like flancing people for fun, and they think it's pretty.
Yeah, their art obsession or their obsession or whatever it is typically is more toward the grotesque.
Like,
so
heavy mutilation. Like, did you ever watch NBC's Hannibal? Like that, but grosser. And more intense while they're alive.
I thought that was a Samitsi thing.
No.
Yeah, see, that's what people say, but Sabbat Toreador are way worse.
Okay.
So, the Zamitsi will change how someone looks and use their own flesh to torture them and everything like that. Like, not great, but it's not visceral. Where the Toreador will just be like, yeah, I'm cutting the skin off your back, we're gonna make you look like an angel, whole thing. Oh, you're so pretty now.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing all that.
Right, as we should not. Like, the most graphic description should probably be what I just did. But that's what Sabbat Toreador typically do.
Yeah.
And there was one of those in Tory's pack.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if we ever come across a Sabbat Toreador and you ever go into their haven, I'll just be like,
Don't.
it's fucking gross. It's fucking gross. Tory, please roll. Check.
Yeah.
Everybody else. You want to get out because you're freaked the fuck out.
Roll sanity. We're not even in Call of Cthulhu, but roll sanity.
That's probably what Tory would be rolling, for sure.
That's probably what we'd all be rolling.
Yeah. I believe I would probably have, like, composure and resolve for Tory, and then everybody else, like, composure and, like, something else to, like,
Yeah.
be revolted and, like, leave.
Mm-hmm. Survival?
Yeah. The
Yeah, it would
the,
work.
the Hannibal-esque version of art is what the Toreador are into.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Zamitsi about changing, and they use the flesh to torture, but not in the same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're terrible. Anyway, moving on.
Okay. Changing the tone. How did Tory really feel about jumping into the barony? Like, was that something she genuinely wanted, or did it feel like an obligation at that point?
It's not something she necessarily wanted. However, she spent a good portion of her time attempting to stay out of anyone's viewpoint and spotlight. And given the fact that multiple barons have then reached out and asked them to do things and had their eye on them, she, given her feeding habits and everything and her background and all of that, she was very worried that heavy consequences were going to come down on her. So when she began to realize that they were kind of grooming the coterie to take a leadership position, or someone in the coterie, specifically she thought Carissa was wanting Shiloh to do it, but when they begin to groom the coterie to take the leadership position, she was going to and make sure that she was in a position of power, that she would not have consequences brought down onto her as easily. She was the bottom of her Sabbat pack. She was independent for a long time. That's very difficult, and they're not treated well. She's a gangrel, not treated well. So she does not want to be in a position like that continuously. No one else really wanted to, so she was fine stepping up. She doesn't necessarily want to do it, but it's the best way to be safe.
And really, let's be honest here, it's kind of like a co-barony between all of you.
Yeah,
Steven...
Tory doesn't care about the people necessarily, which I, as a player, find hilarious that your characters think that she's pushing for these things, when it's really just, oh, you want to do that? Sure, we'll make it happen.
Yeah. And, like, technically speaking, Steven can't be Baron of the Sprawl. Shiloh technically couldn't, however, could be thrust into it. Beth didn't want it, let's be honest here. So that left the options of Amp, Wink, Tory.
Yeah, and she was not going to run any of them.
Yeah, Wink's not smart enough, and Amp didn't really want it. And it was a means to an end at that given point in time.
I'm assuming much for the reasoning Tory had. Safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to add on to that one. It was just a means to an end. She is... I can't quite say happy with what has been happening, because the way that the other barons have been treating her, and as she has come to see Dante and the reasonings behind it. But obviously things are going to be very different in the next coming games.
Right. Because I think at this point, personally, Tori's kind of proven that she can handle her stuff.
Yeah, so she's pretty easy to have the kindred abilities take over her, as we have seen. Even Wink was able to do it. But in Elysium, when that is not supposed to happen, she is on equal footing with them.
Right.
With the whole being able to be taken over thing. It's just she sees it as it's just part of kindred society. Those who have the power to do that will do it. Those who cannot resist, just cannot resist and have to roll along with it. Which is what she's done when it's happened to her. She's not thrilled about it, but she also understands that it's just a part of their life. But when she doesn't have to worry about that, she is on equal footing with them, and she can not fear that.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Anyway.
Right. I'm assuming it's not gonna hold up, but we'll see.
It's Elysium. You can't use disciplines.
You can't get caught using disciplines.
No, you can't use disciplines.
Well, correct, but we'll see who follows that and who doesn't.
Yeah. Anyway. More questions.
Okay. So off screen we talked about the theory and possibility of Samal having unknown children out in the world. Do you think there's a possibility that Tory might have sired at some point during her Sabbat years?
Absolutely not.
She wasn't allowed to.
Cool. I'm not entirely aware of what the exact dynamics were, so I just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. She was not allowed.
Okay. Cool, that answers that question. Just spoiler-free, quick and dirty version. Because I'm curious, what were the vague circumstances that got Tory from where she was to where she is now? Like, how did she... what physically drove her out of where she was originally from, to Atlanta, of all places.
So, Tory is originally from Kansas, born in the 1940s? Hang on, no, it was 30-something. 1 second. I forgot the date. 46. So she was born in 1946 in Kansas. Grew up relatively poor. Their family did not have good means at all. A German family coming out of the war and everything was not treated well. Her and her family just kind of rolled with the punches, dealt with the hand that they were given, and made the best of it. Tory eventually realized that she wanted to be a vet, and then went to schools for that. I didn't look it up. I'm just assuming there is a school somewhere in Kansas that she could have gone to do that. Or near there. And then when she graduated, it was a long one because she went into exotic veterinary, which takes like 13 plus years. So she was a long time in school. Then got a job at the Kansas Zoo, worked there for a little bit, and then got an offer from the Atlanta Zoo. During the move process, she was taken, shovel-headed, and embraced.
Okay.
Was that enough, or did you?
Yeah, that works. I'm just a little slow on the uptake, so I'm just replaying it in my head.
That's fine. I was just making sure that it was like.
Yeah.
That was your question.
Yeah, no, that was totally my question. Cool. Okay. Sidetracking, Dengle, question. How did her sire die?
Second
I know you don't.
position.
Cool.
We're just gonna hand wave that one for right now.
No, that's totally fine. I wasn't expecting a whole lot because I know you don't want to talk a whole lot about him, but just for like catharsis' sake, I wanted to know how he died.
Fire. We'll just put it that way.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. What was the actual question?
How did Tory's sire die?
Oh, yeah, fire.
Cool. I dig it. Question for you, Faye. This is the same one that I asked Cocia and Nen. Knowing what you know now, if you were given the chance to build Tory differently, would you? And if so, what would you change?
So, when I built her initially, I gave her 3 dots in strength, stamina, and dexterity because I didn't think we would really have a melee character in the group. We didn't do a whole lot of talking when we built these characters, which is fine, but it also meant that we had a lot of areas that overlapped and some areas that didn't have anyone. So Tory was originally built to be a more melee-heavy character, and it works with the background I gave her, so I'm not upset by the build. I definitely would have put in more in the composure, I think, over, like, strength or dexterity or something like that. Because that is more her personality. But it works. I don't know if I would go retroactively change it or work with Dengle to change it, because it does fit the character since we have talked and come up with reasonings for it. But I definitely would not have made her such a melee thing, given we have Steven and Beth, who's very good at it still too. Given the way that every time I have been in combat with Tory, she rolls like shit. But it's fine. It's fine.
It will be. It'll all be fine in the end.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing, because as I have talked about multiple times, but never like on a recording, Tory is currently acting as our face character when it comes to Kindred specifically, having 0 in any sort of face stuff. Her manipulation is 1, like persuasion is 2. She has no dots in any of that. Leadership, manipulation, like anything. She has no dots in it. And it's difficult and interesting to play a character who is acting as the face without actually being a face. Tory's first reactions to things are not typically violence. It's anger, but not violence.
So you're saying that the fact that everybody's like, oh, she's angry is accurate.
Yes, but it wasn't her original personality. That has been a learned behavior, and also with the beast more close to the surface than most Kindred, whether in the past or currently. I'm playing it up as in that is affecting it. Getting very close to their beasts. It sits on the surface. It changes them. That's where that has come in.
Makes sense.
In her human life, she was very composed, very scientific-minded. Her emotions didn't control her. She was very quiet about them, and like in control of herself. Kind of like how Samala acts most of the time. That's how Tory was as a human. Being embraced certainly changed her a lot.
Does she ever get angry with herself or feel like she's failed herself by letting her anger out so much?
Constantly. Anytime her anger gets the better of her, she hates it. Because that's not who she was, is, or wants to be. But she also accepts the fact that that is just her life now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's reading Tory's backstory and like what she was before. She's very, very logical. So the fact that she still has that, but it's very emotion driven too, it's kind of funny to me.
Yeah, it's very interesting to play because she can have these super long and elaborate conversations with people and like hit very interesting points and think things through. But if something goes wrong, she gets very angry very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not a violent anger. It is frustration. It is loud. But it's very rarely physical anger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she saves that until she gets hungry.
Yes.
Kind of a side question of that. I know you said earlier that her trust with Shiloh was kind of on rocky ground after the whole Gregor thing. How did she feel about Shiloh coming to her later and saying, look, I know I fucked up. I'm trying to be smarter about this, but will you help me with this worst case scenario? How did she feel about that?
So, because of the way she was treated, with her individual wants and respects basically being shit, I don't know if it's been... I've tried to play it as such, but I don't know if it's been actively seen in-game or realized in-game. Whenever a Kindred makes a choice, she does her best to uphold that choice, no matter what it is. She has not overly gone out of her way to change someone's mind, unless she feels strongly about it. She will do her best to come to agreements with people or, like, accommodate their wants. And that is what she's attempting to do with Shiloh. However, the Sabat pack mentality is still in her head, so she is not going to abandon Shiloh, necessarily, because that is how... I can't get into the reasons as to why, but there is reasons as to why Tory does not like to abandon someone she has come to see as hers.
It has nothing to do with the fact that she left the spot willingly prior to all of this.
It was willing and also kind of wasn't willing.
Right, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
She wasn't, like, forced to go somewhere and, like, got sidetracked on something else. It was, I want to leave.
yeah. So she was in the Sabbat for a long time. And after a certain amount of time, came a little bit more into her own senses as to what was happening, what she was being forced to do, why it was wrong, and just be like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And also, shit, they might kill me.
Yeah, it's always a thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can I ask? Can I have a turn, please? I need one.
Of course.
Okay, I'm done. I'm being over dramatic for no reason. Anyways, okay, so I'm pretty sure that you have one of the most thought out characters of all of us, which is no surprise. But do you feel that it has made things a lot easier to keep everything about Tory in line? Or does it sometimes actually come back to bite you in the butt because you can't do what you want to do because that's not what is in your backstory?
There has been a few things that have come up. Absolutely. That'd be like, I really want to do this, but Tory wouldn't do this. But honestly, overall, I have not had too many issues playing in the character's viewpoint. I have a lot of fun doing that, and I find it to be fairly easy personally. Like, there's been a couple of times where, like, I really want to make this decision, but this character wouldn't. But no, overall, I find it to be easier to have a character where I know what they would do. And honestly, 50% of Tory was written after the first 2 to 3 games. I had a base concept of her, and I had ideas, and then once I got a hold of the personality after playing her a couple of times, that is when I fleshed out the backstory. That is also something I find to be much easier to do.
Right, which is why when I run a game, typically the first 2 are very, like, choice light, character light, roleplay light-ish. Like, you do things, but it's not necessarily, like, make or break stuff. It's, like, logical decisions. I'll put you in a couple situations where you, like, figure out how you want to handle them, but it's not, like, character making or character breaking.
I think a couple character defining choices in the first 2 games are make the characters easier to handle long term. But again, not a make or break situation. Just an informative, this is how this person would handle this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost like Dengle knows us and knows that we need that.
Yeah, and not just that, but, like, I feel like everybody needs that. I don't care how long you've been doing this or how long you've had a character concept or anything. Once you actually get to play them a couple times, like, then you can be like, yes, this works, this doesn't. Scrap that, tweak this, keep that type of idea.
And actually, you can see the development of Tory full on. If you go back to the first game, she's very emotionally blunt. Kind of blunt, but also very emotionally withdrawn. She doesn't have too many bouts of anger. She's very reserved in her actions and her spoken word. But in the second game, she's much more emotionally driven. Because that is when I decided, no, the way she was there doesn't make sense. Now, I can play it back and say she was uncomfortable in the situation. She didn't know how to respond. and she was making sure that she wasn't going to cause any issues for herself. That makes sense for her character, but you can see the development of the actual character now that you know that most of her was not written until game 3. That was the progression of how I realized her personality, which told me the backstory.
Yeah.
Because I worked out. I did. I had key points, but I didn't have that fully fleshed out, like 5 paragraphs.
Right. And you do a lot like I do. I'll give you major points. I'll give you, like, major events. I might give you where they were at certain times, what they did there, why they were there, but not necessarily, like, everything about it.
Yeah, I like specifics with open interpretation, because that leaves room for things like Gregor. I had no idea what he was going to be. I had no idea his personality or anything. I didn't even know his name. There was a Tremere in her background, who was this priest, and that was all I knew.
Yep, and he had a special interest in her.
Yes, that was also in her backstory, but, like, other than those 3 points, I didn't know anything else.
Exactly.
I didn't even know about Samal at all. He was not in her backstory whatsoever.
Right. But I figured pack, and
there's spots open for it because I didn't develop the pack. The only person in the pack I specified was that Tremere.
Yep. And then I came up with Samal, and then we kind of, well, the Tremere, your sire, obviously, and then you left it open.
Yeah, there was 100% down there was the Tremere Azamitzi, Tory's sire, and at, like, game 4 or 5, we decided there was a Toreador.
Yeah, because
but, like, that was the only thing fleshed out for that pack.
Yeah, which that came after the fact of we talked about it and why is she scared of a Toreador? This is why. And going back to previous conversation.
And that was why Tory acted the way she did. Because Carissa was the one who contacted her, and, like, she was thrown into a supremely uncomfortable situation for her.
Yep. So that's the only reason why the Toreador even got thrown in there.
Yeah, to basically make session 1 make sense.
Yeah. Then I came up with the rest of the pack, which wasn't a whole lot. We got Samal, we got Winnie, and didn't I say one more? Maybe.
Yeah, the pack wasn't massive, but it was a decently sized one. We've never given it a number, so more people could pop up later.
Right. Which the majority of them probably perished in the fires of the Second Inquisition.
Probably, but even by names or talking about them or hinting at Tory having a past with one of them, that could come up at any point.
Right. Which we've already established that Second Inquisition isn't really, like, a thing anymore. They kind of, like, died down a whole lot of their operations. They're technically still around, but they're not doing anything. The hunters are still there. They're still technically part of that. So, yeah, but the hunters will always be there. Let's be honest here.
Yes, they will.
Yeah, it's just the government-funded ones are the issues. So, yeah, no technically government-funded Second Inquisition. That being said, I've already given Faye to have full permission to say screw all that. And, like,
no, yeah. I can probably say the same for my game. That 1 or 2 may show up or be talked about, but my game is the same way. There really won't be an actual Second Inquisition. Third, whatever. Another Inquisition. Did you have any more questions about the character creation process that I went through? I feel like I went really into detail with like all of my answers here. Kind of sorry, but not actually about it.
No, don't be.
And at no
Sorry,
point
not
you can
sorry.
say, I plead the fifth.
We're not asking the right questions, guys.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm actively trying to avoid getting an I plead the fifth, so...
No, I did actually give one. I said the reasons, Tory. Yeah, there was something that I said, like, I can't actually give the full reasons yet. There's been one thing.
But you gave an answer. You just said I can't go into detail because of...
X,
Sure.
Y, and Z.
Which is totally valid.
Does Nen have any questions for Faye? You've been real quiet, so specifically had to call you out. I'm sorry.
No, not really. Pretty much everything. Most things have been answered outside of the usual stuff we've asked every game. Well, every interview.
I figure we can get to those after specific questions.
Yeah.
Cocia
So
wants
buttons. Yeah, I'm sure Buttons has a bunch more. Cocia, maybe a couple.
Eventually.
I have a retroactive question for Dengle, if you don't mind us jumping back a bit. This is actually something I thought about yesterday.
While you do that, I will be right back.
Okay.
Just to satisfy my above-the-table curiosity, I find it incredibly hard to believe that someone as talented at manipulation as Carissa would not know that her pet ghoul is going behind her back. Did she actually know because she figured something like this would happen?
Trying to figure out the right way to answer this at this given point in time. She's not dumb. She didn't tell him not to for a reason. However, she wasn't going to condone it. Specifically. If that makes any sense. Like, she knew he wanted more than to just be a ghoul, but she wasn't willing to embrace him due to some underlying issues that she had with him. So she was going to keep him as a ghoul. So the fact that he went outside to try to get what he wanted, she can respect, and how he went about it, she left enough room to be able to do that. If that makes any sense. You got that one, Faye, from chat? Okay.
I mean, I can answer it on here, too. I was typing it out, but I can just answer it on here. So there's a question in chat saying, has Tory ever met any of the rare Sabbat stuff, like Blood Brothers, Harbingers, Raphister Ghouls? So there was a Tzimisce and the Tremere that got on mostly pretty well in her pack, which was unusual, but the Zim was actually really into the Sabbat and not into Tzimisce stuff only. We haven't 100% worked out if Tory has seen those things. It would be likely that she did, given Atlanta was large, and her pack traveled around it and outside of it. So there's every likely possibility that where, even if she didn't specifically work with them, she would have been around them. She was in the Sabbat, I want to say we said for 30 years. So there was a long time for her to be around those things. Like, she has even seen a Salubri in the Sabbat.
Yeah, which being exceedingly rare anyway.
Right. Don't apologize. We are happy to answer these questions. This is
Yes.
why we wanted to do it on stream.
Yes. But yeah, no, as far as the salubri thing being exceedingly rare anyway, Sabat salubri is, I feel like, legitimately a unicorn.
Yeah, that one was psycho.
Gave the old moniker of Soul Eater 100% its name.
Yup. Also, why it was Tori's reaction to the Soul Eater comment makes sense now.
Here's a question that I hope trip you up just a little bit, okay? How's Peter doing?
Are you asking me or Dengle?
Yeah, you have him.
I don't know, Dengle. How's he doing?
He's staying busy at the bar.
Yeah, I think Dengle and I don't remember if it was on a recorded thing or not, but we did actually talk a little bit about that. He basically got forcibly hired into the bar. So Cameron can keep an eye on him. Tory has given Cameron the Second Inquisition gun as a last resort, but also gave him a couple stakes and be like, hey, if Peter misbehaves, use these.
Yeah, if he's a little shit, just poke him in the chest a couple times. He'll be fine.
Yep.
And then this is for myself. Like I said, I've been re-listening to the games. So I couldn't remember at all that Amp said he's scared of people that eat people. And I remember why I was sick that game. So my brain was completely fuzzy. So was that actually in the rundown that Tory gave everybody? Or is the rundown really just like, oh, yep, Cam's coming, Giovanni's coming?
What do you mean? What was in what rundown?
That Amp was scared of people that eat other people. Or Kindred, that eat other Kindred.
There would have been no reason for her to, go over that again. One, because you were there for the original conversation. Beth was.
Beth was not. Amp only said that to Tory because that happened whenever Beth texted.
Right.
It was like, oh, hey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with Gramps. You're like,
Right.
Cameron.
I do kind of remember that now. I'm sorry.
No, that's
well, Beth,
because you were like, yeah, don't you remember he's scared of them? And I'm like, when did this happen? I don't remember this at all.
So Beth has said before that she does not eat other kindred. She has never done so, and has never diablerized. Tory would have no reason to make sure Beth knew that.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. That I was just like, we were talking about that after the game, that, Amp was so terrified. I was like, why is he so terrified? And now things are so clicking together.
Yeah, there would have been no reason for her to go over that with Beth.
Nope, that's cool. That was just more so for me, because I was like, I don't remember this.
Had Beth said that she has, drank other kindred's blood, then Tory had been like, let's not do that in front of people.
Well, I don't think she's gonna admit that she did that to Nate at all. Unless it's called out on it.
And that's fine. You guys do not know she's a blood leech herself, nor a diablerist. She's done pretty well at keeping that under wraps from the coterie so far.
Yep, and nobody really knows a whole lot about the Sabbat. Even Shiloh, to the best of my knowledge, to know that was a pretty common thing.
Yes, no, we've established that Shiloh does know that Tory probably has done that before, but not since leaving. She might wonder, but there really hasn't been any hints because they have watched Tory drink from the dogs.
Yeah. And also the whole propaganda thing makes it all muddy.
Yeah. Any more questions from anybody? Ask it.
Oh, didn't you have a question about Blitz at one point?
Oh yeah. How did Tory come to have Blitz? How did that meeting of the minds happen?
This was actually a discussion Dengle and I had after you asked that initially. So Blitz, there was a Tzimisce in Tory's pack. There was some Bradoviches there too. The Tzimisce Houndmaster ghouls. Blitz was a Tzimisce hound that never got changed, was never transformed. She took him as a puppy when she ran, because she also had to take care of the pets and the ghouls. Given her background as a veterinarian and everything, she had medical knowledge that was useful to her as animals, but also the Sabbat made her learn to deal with ghouls because they viewed mortals as chattel and animals. Like, no better than animals, so she had to learn and adapt. But yeah, no, she took him as she ran.
This one's pretty. It's mine.
I don't know what made her choose that one. Maybe he was the runt of that litter. Maybe he just wasn't treated well. Whichever reason, she chose him, and after he got to about 3 years old, she ghouled him, and he became her familus. Which every gangrel ability she has stumbled upon on her own. So it's been slow going there, because she has never really been around another gangrel. Which we have talked about in game. Dante is the only one that she's actually been around for any length of time.
Yeah. It's great. Anyway,
Got a question. Does Tory have any hobbies she keeps hidden from the coterie?
Not anymore. I don't know if I would even call it a hobby, but you guys found out that she did her, like, street doctor stuff in order to appease her own guilt. And raise her humanity up. So I don't really think she has too many hidden hobbies, because you guys saw her entire library probably put together that she likes to read and, like, self-educate on things and doesn't care about technology. So I don't think Shiloh would be the only one to really know that Tory likes music. It was on an unrecorded part of the game because there was problems during the recording. But Tory likes classic rock.
yeah. That's true.
We have another question.
Yes. From the person watching. Question for everyone if they want to answer. If you run into a human on your own for whatever reason, how would you react? Or for your... Oh, did you mean for your own or for your... Oh, I'm confused with the question. I'm sorry. If you could
Yeah.
elaborate
The
there.
answer is right on point. No one will take anything from Steven. Sabby, from your past.
Oh, from your past.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Ooh, that is a good question.
Now,
That's his easy answer. She will pretend like he does not see them. Will then try to stalk them and just follow them for as long as she can. She doesn't have a lot of humans in her past that she cares about.
Tory wouldn't remember most of them. She has lost, and most of her memory was taken from her during the things that happened to her in the Sabbat. Mainly because they had a Sabbat that could wipe your past. That's what the Tremere did. I don't remember the ability's name, but, like, definitely used it on a lot of the people there to get them, like, you're Sabat now. Tory wouldn't remember too many of them. The ones that she did would be really, really old and probably not remember her anyway.
But even people from like the 70s
That's true.
Remember her a whole lot.
She was declared a missing person and then pretty much figured dead. Tory does not look the way like she used to because there was a Zemitzi in the pack, so she looks a little bit different, and she dyes her hair. Her hair is not naturally red; it is a dark brown.
This is true.
Which during the time skip that we will be going through, she is going to be stop dyeing her hair, so there will actually be brown and not red. So the Tory will no longer have red hair post time skip. But now the people that she would have ran into during the Sabbat, if any of them still were alive, she would feel immensely guilty and ignore them and like, I don't see you.
Unless if their name is Winfried or Samal.
Well, right. I meant any mortals or anything like that. If it was Kindred, probably would be terrified and running and like, there's a reason she was not wanting to look the way she used to in the Sabbat. And she also she kind of doesn't use the name. The Sabbat did not know her by the name of Tory. Mostly.
No. I believe that you said it.
So Tory in the Sabbat was her mortal last name was Jaeger, because yay random name generators, and I loved it. And due to circumstances, they used that name to make fun of her. So the name became synonymous with bad connotations. So she used that name when she was doing the street doctor stuff in order to, like, not have those connotations with it anymore. But also so people wouldn't know who she was necessarily.
Yeah.
And then after leaving the Sabbat, she began to go by Tory again, which she went by as Immortal.
Yeah. Great times. How about Shiloh? Shiloh runs into her old flame again. What would happen?
Said old flame would be in their 60s, so not much, I imagine.
Oh, I'm sure.
Might feel a little bit guilty, but I don't know. Probably a little bit of guilt for letting things end the way they did, but she didn't think she had many options back then, so I don't know if she would be, like, deeply guilty about it, but it'd be like, yeah, sorry about that.
And our baby, come on, Steven. All of your people are probably still alive.
They are.
Oh, they are.
Still in contact with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've already established that one.
Also, follow-up question for Shiloh: would you fool your old flame?
No. Absolutely not. That actually would directly violate her core tenant thing, whose name I'm blanking on. Conviction, there we go. That would actually directly oppose her conviction, because she feels that all persons are due an amount of dignity and respect, and that also means not violating their free will. So, yeah, no, she would not ghoul them. She would probably wipe their memory. She would apologize, wipe their memory, and then go.
Yeah. And that
I
would
don't know
be
what you're
why.
talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
And that would be why Shiloh doesn't have compel as cloud memory.
And I don't know what you're talking about. Beth asked Gramps for permission to ghoul him. If there's consent.
Yeah, but God, that's so interesting though, because he was in a very similar situation to Shiloh. Because when you're faced, like I said with Dengle, when you're faced with the options of death or undeath, that's not really much of a choice.
Yeah.
But also, Gramps was not fully understanding what he was agreeing to. Taking the life and death thing out of it, he was not understanding what he was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
And Tory was there for
Tried her
that
best.
conversation. She doesn't care. That's one of the first big hints that you saw in game that Tory just doesn't care about mortals.
Yeah.
She cares about him after as a pet of Beth's, but that's the extent of it. Tori's own touchstones she cares a little bit more about, but again, they're more like almost pets to her.
Yep. And to kind of go with that, the fact that afterward he got that like understanding and then came back to Beth of, hey, can we make this stronger? This shit's kind of cool. It's, I don't know. It kind of, he might have some things going on in his personal thing as well that if he could go back and make that choice again, he probably would do the same thing, even with the knowledge that he has now. But yeah, let's be honest here, Beth didn't really give a great explanation.
I mean, a lot of that's Cocia, because as try as I might, I cannot get this shit down. I'm working on it, I promise. But yeah.
You know, are you done answering that question? So, similarly to what I asked of Nenavar for Steven on his personal episode, I should have asked you as well. So with Shiloh's personal consent and like not going against their free will and everything, how does Shiloh think and react to the kindred that use those abilities? Because again, she has been around when those abilities have been used on Tory, and as far as I can remember, Tory is the only one, other than Steven in Game 0, that have had those abilities used on them.
And then they've actually worked.
Yes. Like, there have been attempts, but the only ones who actually work have been on Tory.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Thinking about Shiloh's mindset, back before everything went down with Dennis, I think she would have hyper-fixated on empathizing with the quote-unquote victim of said manipulation, and would have kind of just glossed over the idea of someone having these abilities like, oh, that's just Kindred, that's what they do. I don't think before all this had happened, she would have had the ability to access any anger. But now that might start showing up a little bit more. She might start reacting a little bit stronger to other things.
So, for example, it happened during the Christmas episode where Wink made Tory walk away from Kumari. But then immediately after, Shiloh was all about talking to Wink about, like, fixing the neighborhood and everything like that. Was that just, like, you... I don't want to say, like, not playing the character, because that's not what I'm meaning by that. Like, did it just not register? Was Shiloh, did it not register? Did she not realize? Was she just overlooking it because of other circumstances that were happening?
That was actually fawning. I don't know for everyone playing the home game, there you might know about the fight or flight response, but there's two other typical responses. There's freezing, which is literally just freezing up and waiting for things to blow over, and then there's fawning, which is essentially like sucking up to the person and doing whatever is in your power to make things okay again. When because Shiloh didn't really have the capacity to access her anger, fight was not an option. Flight is her typical go-to, but she couldn't do that when the coterie was still there. Freezing wasn't really going to do anything, so in her mind, her only option was fawning. Okay, what can we do to resolve the situation? Because I don't like that my friend is being treated like this, so let's just give him what he wants and make him go away.
Kind of figured that was the explanation. I just wanted a thought-through process of it.
Yeah,
and get a confirmation of it.
Yes. Listen, I thought that a little bit, because we've talked a little bit about how, ironically, our entire coterie has all of the fight or flight responses handled, which is great.
Kinda, yeah.
Tory's fight, whether it be verbally or physically. Beth was freezing, I think?
Fawning.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
fawning. Shiloh's flight. And then Steven was...
Yep. Steven...
Physical fight.
It's a 50-50. Freezing or fight, depending on exactly what's happening.
Yes.
And if he's seeing things at the moment.
Yeah, that's a big thing about him.
Buttons, did you have more questions?
Let's see. We kind of got a pretty good picture of what she thought, what she thinks of the coterie. We kind of have a pretty good picture of what she thinks of the Barons, air quotes, and most of the main NPCs.
Yep, just like
Now, has
everybody
that
else, Red is my favorite.
Has that been off-recording things that we've talked about that need to be on a deep dive, though? Because I've done a lot of talking off-recording.
Yeah, that's why I'm...
Yeah, to a certain extent, some of them, I feel like, probably do need... I feel like we know exactly her feelings on Carissa at this point.
Well, I can... Real fast, I'll give a brief rundown of the coterie. Shiloh, she was building trust with. Still thinks she's a flight risk, but the trust that was building have kind of been a little bit broken just because of the situation with Gregor. Again, not that she would have known, but as the traumatic experiences that Tory has gone through, the fact that Shiloh quote-unquote worked with him does not sit well with her. Yes, she was affected by it too, and yes, bad things have happened because of it, but there was still that, in Tory's mind, like, you decided to go along and work with him. Tory may have made those exact same decisions, but it still, Shiloh did it. With Beth frustrates her. She also doesn't understand how Beth has gone so long without self-teaching anything, because Tory devoured any knowledge of Kindred she could get in order to learn.
Perks of being a dropout and a runaway. So long as you can make money and feed, you're good.
And that's perfectly understandable for Beth, but Tory doesn't understand how Beth can live like that. Steven... So, it's hard to put a pin on Steven. She kind of holds him at arm's length just because of, again, about experiences with Malkavians. They are something else. She doesn't think he's like that. She pretty much knows he isn't like that, which is why she's fine working with him. But she still kind of isn't 100% sure how to treat him. His competency in the whole situation probably put him in an easier to trust position.
Now,
Quick and dirty coterie rundown.
yep. Now, correct me if I'm wrong about any of these. Dante, she's frustrating but useful.
I don't see how Tory finds him useful so far. He has not really done too much to be helpful.
As a information as far as Gangrel are concerned.
Potentially. She's also wary of being around him for too long of a time, with him having a lot of experience as a gangrel. Age notwithstanding, he has a lot of experience being around other gangrel and, like, being immersed in that culture. She's wary of that. For reasons you know, but I can't get into yet. We will get to that question as soon as we're done with the NPC dives on Tory.
Johnny is super sketchy, likes him at a core, but will not trust him. Is that pretty close?
Yes.
Okay.
She definitely thinks he's more than what he's putting out.
Victor, I feel like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, he is unnecessarily uptight and pompous, thinks he's better than everybody else, and Tori doesn't like him for it.
Typical Venture. She does know, again, that he's young. He has the chance to change, and she wants to give him the opportunity to. However, the more he is acting the way he is, the less she's willing to give him those chances.
And then Carissa, burn in hell.
Yep. Again, we've gone over it. Carissa scares her a lot. She was super sketchy about Carissa the whole time. She kind of figured something was off. She abhorred how Carissa treated Shiloh. That was one of the reasons that Tori stuck so quickly to Shiloh in the first place. Because Tori... There's a lot of parallels she saw between how Carissa treated Shiloh and how Gregor treated her.
Right. Barney is useful information broker, however, it's Nosferatu, so can't trust him as far as you can throw him.
Less than she can throw them.
Well, him you can probably trust a little bit further, but yeah.
I don't know, she was able to throw Red pretty far.
You also rolled exceedingly well.
I did, it was great, it was beautiful.
He also didn't resist, though, if I remember correctly, right?
No, because one, Stephen called him on that being the favor, and Barney told him to.
Yeah. And speaking of Red, doesn't like him, doesn't trust him.
Not necessarily. She wants to like Red. I am playing it off the fact that he reminds her of a friend she used to have that she slightly remembers. Probably one of those people she went drinking with out in the woods and playing cards with. Especially after the card thing. So she wants to like him, but he's such an ass. But she's only frustrated with him when he does stupid shit. Kind of like Beth, a little bit. Like, doesn't have a problem with him necessarily, just don't do stupid shit. Don't sneak yourself into here and then fucking tell people the shit that you hear. Especially if it's more than just Barney. She understands that the Nosferatu are gonna get their secrets. And that's what they gotta do. That's fine. Don't be dumb.
Yeah. Speaking of don't be dumb, Cyril. I think there has been a major shift in that.
Yes. It was very highly antagonistic in the beginning, mostly because the Barons were paying her to be antagonistic towards him. She didn't really care one way or the other. He didn't affect her whatsoever. As she started trying to build power base, he was getting in the way, and the Jacoby thing, like, really was like, why the fuck did you do that? This is personal now.
Yeah.
But
and I think
in her mind, that was all taken care of when she handled Jacoby. So that's gone, and that's gone. That's not there anymore.
And I think we've kind of discussed as to exactly why he did it. It was a power play, and Tory responded in kind and said, "Oh, you want to play? We can play." And
yes.
Cyril's like, "Oh, I like this one."
Yeah, Tory doesn't do manipulative power moves too often, but she's intelligent enough to know when they're needed.
Yeah. Now, moving on to Spanx, because I don't think I've ever asked anybody else. What is your thoughts on Spanx?
He frustrates her a lot, but that's not unusual, of course. She actually feels bad for him. He was left not knowing anything and kind of having to make his own way. Cyril has done nothing for him. Again, playing into the fact that Tory doesn't understand why people like and care for their sires. Her feelings with Cyril aside, she thinks he needs to do better. Tory may not understand why people like their sires, but she still thinks that Kindred need to do better than that their sires did to them.
And again, above table, he made Cyril the feed on Cyril for the first couple of years that he needed him. And now it's just one of those, you're there, I'll make sure you don't die, I guess.
I'm sorry, say that again, because you said Cyril in that sentence like 3 times.
Cyril made Spanx the way he is to feed on Spanx.
Ah.
And was keeping him alive and keeping him in the dark for a reason. Taught him enough to not, like, destroy everything, but he was like, I'll keep you here and I guess make sure you don't, like, die, but yeah.
Yeah, there was no reason to bring it up in the conversations they had, especially as she was there on Cyril's good graces necessarily, but that would have been a conversation she had to just, like, be a better sire than ours collectively, as in, like, most Kindred.
Yeah, and I feel like between all of us, I feel like that was fairly obvious that that's why he did that. A quick, easy, like, I need to have something, come here.
Yeah, above the table, I consider Tory having one of those too, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah, Spanx is odd.
Yeah, she genuinely feels bad for him, but also thinks he needs to wise up. Open his eyes to the situation, which he seems to have done with the whole Pete thing, but not in a good way.
Yeah. Some people have to mess up a couple times before they really get it.
And she's all for Kindred making their own mistakes, which is why she went along with what he wanted to do.
Yep. And then as far as Wink is concerned, without knowing the other situation behind Beth and her night that she had.
What, not knowing that he didn't do what he was supposed to?
Yeah, he was there, he just didn't help.
Yeah. So she slightly resents what he did to her, of course. But again, she understands that's kindred society. That's water under the bridge, but still water. She doesn't like his mentality of, well, I need the handout to get up in the world. She's giving it to him because that means he's indebted to her. Or what she is able to give to him. But she doesn't understand why that is his entire reasoning for doing nothing.
Yeah. So, again, when we do the Victor deep dive, Link will be in that story.
Right.
And you'll be able to see, because it is local to me, I do know the area quite well. I will play off exactly what the areas are as I see them. They might not be 100% accurate, technically speaking, but as I see them and what the people exude as far as personality, you'll understand it at that point. But the short and narrow of it is where Wink grew up. That was the mentality.
Oh, I understand that as a player. I'm saying Tory doesn't, given all of her experiences and what she had to do growing up in the 40s and 50s as a German family in the South. She climbed her way up. She put herself through school. She made her, attempting to make her life better for 35 plus years that she worked and did that for her. She was in the Sabbat for 30 years. She spent years digging herself out of that. She climbed her way back up from almost whitedom into a barony. She doesn't understand why he is content.
Yeah. Like I said, as far as characters concerned, I'll show you that. Or, well, players concerned, I'll show you that. Not necessarily characters. But if you sit down with him, he'll tell you his entire life story. That being said, I don't feel like that's one of those things that Tory really cares about.
It's a discussion she would have if it comes up, but she wouldn't necessarily go seek it out.
Yeah, exactly. And then, let's see here. We got him. Pete's too new to have a gauge on him. Am I missing anybody?
Food, not food. Food, not food.
Yeah. Am I missing anybody?
I mean, we've
Gramps.
kind of... I went over that a little bit. He's just Beth's pet currently. Someone to kind of keep an eye on, but like, eh.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously, Winnie and Samal, there's a certain kinship there.
Yes. I think her feelings towards Small are pretty obvious. He is the step-in sire / father figure in her life at this point. Whether he thinks that or not, she doesn't care. That's how she views him. She understands that he probably doesn't see it the same way. Or at least she thinks he doesn't.
Yeah, no, he sees himself more as a protector rather than an actual, like, father figure.
Well, I say father isn't like the overall term. Like, he took care of her. He stepped into that role.
Yeah. Like I said, it's
when
more
she had, like, no memories, or very few memories, because he was there for he was there, like, 10 years after she was in the Sabbat.
Yeah, last little bit. Wasn't a whole lot. So. But yeah, no, he's more protector, like I said. His mindset, at least, is I am the protector of my group.
Yeah.
That's
and she's fine with she's fine with things not being equal in that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, because it is what it is.
Yep.
Small knows that you're not my child, or therefore I'm not going to act as such. However, if you ask for help, I will give you help.
Right.
If you need protection, I'll give you protection, as he's shown before.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said. Father figure was not necessarily the right term, but like that kind of figure.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Because Tory was a grown woman, she didn't need that figure in her life. In that way.
More mentor.
Yes.
Rather than, yeah, that's what it really is.
Blanking on words, but yes, that one.
Yeah. It's okay, I just got that.
Plumbing.
And then for Winnie, they got stuck together, so there is some trauma bonding there.
Best of a bad situation. Yay!
Yeah, it's been a minute since she consistently went to go see him. As she was trying to build herself back up. I think she felt kind of ashamed at the spot she was sitting in, given how theoretically how easily it was for him. Because it was not for her. It's to pull himself back up to like a decent humanity level, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it basically just took him getting a job and getting away from that life to
Right.
kind of get to where he needed.
And Tori is still struggling with it. So I think there was some shame there. But she's finally to the point where she's not feeling like that anymore.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that very recently, prior to being with the Coterie, is when she stabilized in her humanity levels.
Probably. He also, I feel like, probably didn't get afforded as much, given what we know now.
Afforded?
Like the opportunities that others were. So he didn't necessarily get a whole lot of opportunity to stain or deduct humanity.
That's fair.
Given clanless. And they would have known.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, he's one of those that doesn't have a whole lot of depth behind him. He's got stuff, but not a whole lot of depth. So still a fun idea.
Yeah, it'll be fun interacting with him more, because Tori will be interacting with him more, I think.
Yeah.
Given what we established with feeding and everything like that.
Right.
So yeah, that's her thoughts on Winnie. Big trauma bond there. She likes him. She trusts him is the big thing.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that's huge for her. Anyway, I don't think we've got any more NPCs to really go over. Could be wrong.
I don't think so.
So, if we want to answer the question in the chat now.
Yes, which was, do any of you have a deep-seated core faith in yourself or external? And if so, what and why? I'm assuming you mean the characters themselves and their deep-seated faiths. I don't know if Tori would have a deep-seated one. Not in that regards, necessarily.
I don't think Beth does either. I mean, unless you count the fact that she always thinks everything's gonna be just fine. I don't think that's really full faith, though. I think that's just her brainwashing herself into being like, yep, everything's gonna be fine, because everything's gonna be fine.
Is the question faith as in a religious faith, or just a deep-seated, this is my core personal belief? Because if it's a deep core personal belief, then Tori's would be more the treat with respect until given a reason not to. But if it's religious, then no. Tory would basically be atheist at that point.
Yes,
Meaning
And
religion.
apparently it
religious.
is the religious question.
That's a really good question because I know 3 of the answers. One of them I'm not sure about, to be honest with you. I feel like Steven is no, he's atheist.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Shiloh, on the other hand.
That's a good question. Considering the era and the environment in which she grew up and eventually found herself, I'm going to say that she is not religious and in fact would probably have some religious trauma inherent as to why she does what she does and how she became what she became. If she does have faith, it would have been in the inherent goodness of people, regardless of having a faith telling them to be good. But that's obviously been obliterated at this point.
Yeah. Beth is a persistent optimism. Shiloh is a learned optimist that tries to have things have a positive outlook, however, more realist. So, yeah.
I think whatever religion Tory would have had as a mortal, whether it be strong or not, was obliterated by the Sabbat.
Easily.
Yeah. And I feel like Stephen probably never had one because he is product of the newer age. And extremely paranoid and into cryptids and all that fun stuff. So, yeah. Not saying that if you're into that type of stuff, you can't. But, yeah, no. Stephen himself just doesn't lend well to religion as a whole.
I could see Beth being originally raised in the church, but just as her mom checked out more and more, they just stopped going. Like, okay, yeah, I guess we don't do this anymore. That's fine.
Yeah.
Which one I have no clue. I don't know if it'd be like Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist, Brethren, all the other ones. There's like
Probably
1,000 different religions.
Catholic would have been the major one at that point in time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Catholic.
Would any of your characters martyr themselves for the coterie? Tori straight up no. Now, again, as she said to Shiloh, she will put up the fight, but she would not martyr herself for the coterie. She would fight for them, potentially be in harm or death, but not actual martyr.
Stephen would, because he is kind of a stand your ground type person, so he would probably put himself in danger for the coterie.
Shiloh would, if it was a last resort and there was even a chance that it would prevent other people from getting hurt.
I'm honestly not sure Beth would. I think somewhere deep down in her core, Beth is all about self-preservation. I don't think she would.
Follow-up question. Would any of your characters choose to become Bali versus via re-embrace? Now, I'm not 100% sure on what that entails.
I know the history behind it and a little bit of the politics, but I don't know the process, so I'd have to...
Yeah, I'd have to look that up.
I am going to go ahead and say no for Shiloh. I'm sure at least some clan lore would have made its way down to her through her sire, and she would at least have a vague idea of how that all came about and what it's about. And I don't think that'd be something she would want for herself. Even, I mean, like, to be fair, I'm pretty sure right now she's even regretting taking her sire up on his offer the first time around.
Yeah, no, by all means, if you want to explain the process, I'm actually not familiar with that. I understand what the Bali are, generally speaking, but as far as the actual process, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, one of us will read it out.
Embracing. Let's see here. Where to go? The Bali usually only embrace those who are intelligent and driven. Most who are embraced into the clan had interest in the occult during their mortal lives. Embracing ritual is one of the most disturbing. Bali will capture his or her prey and bring them to a site that's prepared. I don't know if I want to keep reading. That's just pretty... Jeez, oh Pete's. Bali drains their victim to near death and tosses them in a pit of corpses. In just one of the corpses, the Bali hid their blood inside one of the corpse's heart. If the victim manages to find the heart before they die and drink the blood, they are considered worthy. Ironically, this makes the Bali the only clan that regularly gives their victims the choice of becoming a vampire or choosing to die.
That's a very interesting parallel to the Sabat shovel head method, honestly.
Yes.
That's fascinating. I feel like Tory would have fought enough that she would have tried. She would have tried to survive. Given a choice, maybe. 7, no, you're fine. She's delved very deeply into the occult now. Not so much before. It depends, because if we're talking about Tory as a mortal, absolutely not. She would have tried to survive, yes, but she would not have done well as a Bali. Tory now, probably more likely to say yes.
Now, here's the question. Would you lean more toward devil or demon worship than all that fun stuff, or
Yeah, the
flip
thing
side
is,
of the coin?
so our Watcher is saying 2 kinds of Bali, either the adversarial type who follow demons or those who destroy the demon worshippers.
So that's the next part of that question.
Big fat no for Beth either way.
Tory, prior to her experiences now, would have gone with the destroy them. Now, possibly leaning towards the following the demons.
What about Steven? Because Steven's really the big, wild card here.
Because he does kind of match their interest, kind of, because he had interest in the occult. Not very intelligent, but I think Maybe if he would capture, he would definitely try to, get the heart and turn into the adversarial, or no, the one who would destroy the demon worshippers.
Apparently, they recruit from clans. They're called apostates and do a dark thaumaturgic ritual called the Rite of Apostasy, which proves the loyalty and grants the demonic discipline.
Apostasy?
Yeah, that word. That's fascinating.
Not gonna use them if you're curious, unfortunately.
No, I don't think I would in my chronicle either, but that is very interesting. It could be a very fun game eventually. It depends on the situation. I don't think Tory would go out of her way to seek that, because she doesn't like being under the control of things, which it sounds like the demons are kind of in that, how they handle that. The demons are more in control since they worship them. But the knowledge and the power that could be given would be a heavy draw to her.
Well, it is nice to officially meet you then.
Yes, hello.
But yeah, no, that I have looked into them. I thought about it at one point, and I was like, "There's a lot to unpack there. I don't feel comfortable with it yet." So
Yeah, not in Chronicle 1 and my first Chronicle, which is technically Chronicle 2.
yeah, like I said, I just started a couple months ago doing this.
Yeah. So this is our... Yeah, when we started, this was the very first time most of us played Vampire. And if we didn't start then, it was only a little bit prior to that.
Yeah. Buttons had 5 minutes.
2 games of experience?
It was not much. Most of my prior experience was academic at best.
Yeah. So Buttons had the most experience out of all of us, and that wasn't much. So that was fun. And yeah, no, I was like, I'll try it. Why not? I run a D&D game. Can't be that much different. I was wrong.
And yet we love it so much.
Yeah, so much that we were like, screw D&D. We don't
What's
want it.
D&D?
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
our whole channel has become VtM with a little bit of COC.
Yeah,
Which
we
is
like
tied into
creepy.
our own World of Darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing it back a little bit. Was there any other questions for Tory?
Not
don't
from me.
Dangle, did you have any?
No, unfortunately. All of the questions that I have, I can't ask, and I know that I can't ask them.
You can ask me in your private chat.
I do most of the time.
True.
Yeah, it would
The
be
rest of you
rehashing
three?
a whole lot of those questions.
What'd you say?
It'd be rehashing a whole lot of those questions. Does Buttons have any more questions?
I think I've asked all the questions that I'm actually going to get satisfactory answers to.
You can ask things that you don't think you'll get satisfactory answers to, and maybe you'll be surprised.
Nah, it's 12:15. I need to go to bed at some point.
Sleep.
Well, the obvious ones that you won't get an answer to, don't ask those. But like, if they're like, I might be able to, go ahead.
I've asked a lot of questions, so.
So?
But you're a question asker. It's okay.
What's Tori's preferred dog breed?
Mutts.
Yeah, I was about to say probably mutts.
Yeah,
They're
there's a
healthier.
specific breed compilation, just mutts. All of her dogs are big, giant mutts.
Emphasis on the giant.
Yes. Big old doggos.
Does Cocia have any more questions?
I'll ask the same super hard random question I asked Steven. What's Tori's favorite color?
I will actually have to use my own favorite color, and for the kind of same reasonings. Because it's, as per normal for me, very deep. Gray.
Okay. Noted.
Question was asked, was Tory on Path of the Feral Heart? So, I can't get into it fully. The pack Tory was in was, the voice of power and something. I'm blanking on the full name of it. But it was the voice one. I'm sure someone's looking it up right now. So that was the one she was on. That was the common one in her thing. So she was eventually leaning kind of towards that, except did end up going towards Path of the Beast while she was in the Sabbat. Yes, Power and Inner Voice. That's the one. But post-Sabbat, we're actually, Dengle and I have worked out a tiny bit, not fully 100% hammered it out, but she's leaning more towards the Path of I think it's called the Path of Humanity right now. It's still Path of the Beast, but the humane side of it, where they're actually trying to work with their beast and come to an agreement with them. Which is actually a big thing in her, what's the word? Words are hard. Part of her ambition, actually, is to come to terms and an agreement with the beast long term. It's kind of like Golconda, but she's not ignoring the beast. She's embracing it as a part of herself. On the kind of feral side of it. Her actual ambition is to figure out the secrets and mysteries of the Kindred blood and the beast and things like that. And that kind of falls into that.
That's really interesting.
Yes. And talk about bestial failures. There was one game where I had like 7 bestial failures in one game. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them I just said, I'm going to hand wave over this one because, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yup.
not going to make you turn into a werewolf. Basically.
The Kindred. I was explaining Gangrel as the werewolf version of vampires to one of my friends.
Yeah. Fun fact, I actually tried to explain, like, the vampire, well, VtM and clans to my mom. She just kind of started doing this after a little while. I was like, you don't get any of this. She's like, you're right. But it's neat.
I explained a couple of them to my mom. I was just like, Adventurer CEO vampires.
Yeah, I was doing this trying to keep my mind off of, the reason why I went to the emergency room last Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
But why do you think the whole thing with Tory's not quite Golconda is fascinating? Buttons.
Because when I was reading up on Golconda, so for those of y'all that don't know, Golconda is kind of like the Salubri goal. That is kind of why they were created, is to help other kindred achieve Golconda. And I actually talked to Dengle about the idea of Shiloh reflecting on her experiences and using the 3 days in seclusion to kind of meditate and gain a dot in Golconda lore. Like, there's a whole legendary thing. So I got that for her. And when I was reading through it, it was purposefully left vague. And I'm looking at the official wiki right now, and it's purposely left vague. But that was actually my interpretation of how I read Golconda, is not necessarily ignoring the beast or pushing it away, but actually coming to an understanding and embracing it in a way that is not necessarily destructive, but mutually beneficial.
That's actually why I want to keep Tory at 5 to 6 humanity, because in my mind, that's the midway point of humanity. That is the best spot for her to be at to do that. It's not high enough to where she's feels inhumane when she listens to the beast or when the beast comes forward or anything like that, but it's also not white levels of beast in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't come up too much in game because the situation hasn't called for it necessarily. But other than when it potentially wasn't breaking the masquerade and like being known to mortals, she would ride the wave. She's going to let the beast take control when it's applicable. With the understanding that the beast is not going to always be in control.
Yeah. So basically it's two means to the same end.
Yeah,
one is just much more controlling than the other.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's the typical Golconda way, because Golconda is typically extremely high humanity in the old lore behind it, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think it was you need to keep 7 to 9 humanity to get Golconda.
Yep,
Yeah,
expressed by keeping humanity above 7 and by spending willpower to avoid frenzy under all circumstances.
Yeah, so Toria's isn't like the typical or actual Golconda, but it would basically be Path of the Beast, Path of Humanity Beast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, same goal of having the understanding and keeping it under control, but Tory goes about it under control because we work together. The other one's under control, you stay there.
Yes.
Yeah. So, does Cream have any questions?
Yes, he wants to know when he's going to get a treat.
He looks very angry that he has not gotten it yet. Any last minute questions for our watcher? Because we are going to be wrapping this up relatively soon. Whether it be for Tory or the coterie. Or Dengle. Alright. Guess that's a no. So as long as no one else has any questions, I can't think of any either.
No, I think this is our longest little interview. And while it's been mostly Tory, there's also been a little bit of everybody else thrown in there too.
Which is fine.
Yeah, it's to be expected to with like full wrap up and full circle moment.
That you can tell us currently with things we know in game. We kind of asked NPCs' reactions to everyone else. What is some of the major NPCs' thoughts towards Tory?
So Dante likes Tory because Tory gets shit done. He doesn't really crap about anything else besides if you get shit done, he likes you. Johnny, Tory amuses Johnny. Doesn't know whether or not to trust her or not, to be completely honest with you. For the simple fact of she does seem to be very emotional. Which is funny coming from Malkavian. Victor, there's some stuff to unpack still about Victor, so I can't go into full detail. Carissa is Carissa. Let's be honest here. Barney likes Tory. Feels like he can trust Tory if she keeps her word. Red is scared of Tory, just straight up. Between being thrown and then being chased down and then being threatened, he's like, nope, not messing with her. Amp gives Tory the respect he feels that she deserves. Doesn't really have strong feelings either way. Will respect her in her domain, though, 100%. Samal, like I said, protector. And then Wink is kind of a reciprocated, like, respect and trust. Whether or not likes Tory is a different thing, given he's probably got the most history with Tory with people that are around regularly.
As in the people she did doctor stuff for, or Sabat background stuff?
The Sabat stuff. Yeah. Like I said, whether or not likes Tory is a hit or miss type thing. But that also is a lot to do with the Sabat stuff. Doesn't knows her background, knows her history. Wants to kind of get rid of that from his own personal standpoint. So anybody that reminds him of that, he's like, I don't really like messing with you, but it's here or there. And so yeah. Said Cyril respects her, kind of likes Tory. She's bold, so he likes her for that reason. Spanx is Spanx. Spanx don't give a crap about nobody, and Wink respects her to a certain point. Respects her as a Baron. Respects her as wanting to try to help, and that's the important thing.
You had Wink on there twice.
I think you meant Winnie the first time.
Yeah. Winnie.
Okay.
First time.
Winnie's the one who, the Sabat background stuff. You said Wink and I was very confused.
Yeah, no, I do apologize. I thought I said Winnie. I'm getting tired.
Imagine that.
So yeah. I believe that's everybody.
Yeah, I think so. Other than Pete, but Pete's new.
Yeah, Pete don't know what to think. Pete likes Cameron.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I believe that's it.
Exactly on time tonight.
Wow.
Thanks for sticking around, anyone who watches or listens to this.
Real quick, I'm going to do announcements. I'll be super quick. TotalPartyKrit.com. Go there, find all the links to everything, including our Discord, our Patreon. If you can support. If you can't, it's fine. We get it. Links to all of the podcasting, such and stuff. Review, let other people know, let them listen. That'd be great. Subscribe, follow everything that you can, whether it be socials, podcasts, YouTube, doesn't matter. Join the Discord as well.
If you join the Discord, you can ask us all these questions and more, and we'll either answer them in Discord or line them up for something like this.
Yes, if you ask me questions, 50-50 whether or not I'll be able to answer them. So, without any other
Dice Legion.
announcements,
Go to Dice Legion. Use our code.
yes, that as well, please.
Which you can find a link for in all of our descriptions to our podcast/YouTube videos and on our website.
But yes, I believe that's it now.
I do believe.
So with that, thank you for sticking around. Have a good night. Stay safe. It's still technically winter, so there might be ice.
Have a good night, everyone.
Sweet dreams.
All right.
We appreciate you all for joining us in our Vampire Chronicle. With our after-game care concluded, us here at Total Party Krit thank you for all of your views, likes, and follows. If you have any questions for a resident vampirist or storyteller, please drop them in a comment below or in any of our social media. Links to those and our Discord will be down below. The world is a crazy place, so stay safe, and we hope to see you again.